Hello, this is Laurie Levin speaking from Spain. And here's a picture I took this morning from my terrace. You're looking at the beautiful Mediterranean Sea. Some days you can see the northern coast of Africa, Morocco's northern coast, and Concha Peak is just behind me. Concha Peak stands about 1,200 meters above sea level and gets its name from its shape, which looks like a shell when seen from the west. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, United States. And last year I took a leap of faith to live closer to my daughter who lives in Europe. And when she told me she was pregnant, I knew I had to live closer to her and her growing family. And I also remembered my research that I had done for my book where I compared countries, showing those that are the most peaceful, the most prosperous, and the happiest are also those who had a female head of state at some time and who had a much narrower gender equality gap than most other countries. So I decided on Portugal, one of the most peaceful countries in the world and the sunniest southern coast. However, I ended up in Spain because just about all the sidewalks in Portugal are cobblestone. And with a fairly recent thin bone diagnosis, I was concerned about falling and breaking a bone. As I heard a lot of folks who'd visited had fallen on their trips, especially when it rains. So I rented a car. I was in Portugal for several weeks and I discovered the cobblestone sidewalks and I rented a car, drove to Spain, and stayed there for about a month. It too is a very peaceful country with great sunny weather along its southern coast. And very importantly, they don't have the same love for cobblestone sidewalks. I'm going to take a moment right now just to stop the screen share. And I want to share a funny, but maybe not so funny end of the story. About 5 weeks ago, I didn't see a step that was coming on a smooth Spanish sidewalk, and I fell and I broke my shoulder. Well, the moral of the story is life happens wherever you go. And as painful as it might be at any given time, and I've learned that a broken shoulder is very painful, when you rise to the occasion and plow through it, thankful every day, for there are always great lessons to learn, great things will come. And when you're going through something bad, as they say, it's just not over. And I think humanity is a perfect example of that. These are crazy times we are living in. You might feel the same way. I think a lot of us do. And it kind of feels like insanity on steroids almost. Well, it's just not over, nor are we. I feel we're actually rising up for a new beginning. And these times are kind of a completion of a time where our lower state tendencies, driven by a combination of our five senses and fear, are creating what we have today, what we're all living with and through. We have so much more in us beyond that realm. There is so much more to be, to share, and to become. And heart-powered and soul-driven, I see a future that we co-create, one that is in alignment with the human spirit, that knows only love, collaboration, deep connections, compassion, care, and kindness. And I felt a glimpse of that in March of this year when I had the extraordinary opportunity to attend the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women in New York City. It was an amazing experience to be part of a global event, one that I had read about for years, maybe decades, that brings heads of states, NGO leaders, and thousands of delegates from across the globe to close the gender gap between women and men. The gender gap hurts us all and represents our greatest opportunity to transform our own lives and the world. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity the Fiera organization gave me to go as a delegate. I was asked by the Fiera organization to do a presentation when I came back from the UN. And because the presentation was about an hour and to a small group of people, I wanted to break it up into short videos in the hopes that more people would see them and be inspired to learn more. So this is the introduction to that four-part video series. As we close the gender gap, we see more peaceful and prosperous people in regions throughout the world. I have worked for decades to close the gender gap, and I know that as people become more aware and conscious of it, they're more likely to organically become agents of change and transformation. And that is my goal, that we become a unified force of humanitarians, peaceful, caring, and enthusiastic about all that we have in common and all that we do not. That we lift one another up, that we recognize each of us is here to share our unique gifts with the world and fulfill our unique purpose. That we all deserve equal access to resources and opportunities, and that we trust one another to make our own life-determining decisions. I'm a coach, author, speaker, and a former corporate executive. I spent 30 years in corporate America, and I think most importantly, I'm a mother, a global citizen, and a human being who cares passionately about the well-being of us, all of us on the planet, and understands, just as the thousands of participants understand who come to the United Nations each year, when any of us are held back, our lives limited or restricted, whether it be due to gender, race, religion, sexual orientation, physical abilities, we are all impacted and we all lose. In the case of gender inequality, I often say how it goes for women goes the family. How it goes for women goes the state, the nation, and the world. And in fact, if you look at the data, this is quite clear. Whether you look at countries or whether you look at states in the United States, those countries and states where the gender gap is the widest are the states and countries where the quality of life for everyone is the poorest. So if you look at the southern states in the United States, for example, these are the states that more likely have the highest maternal mortality rates, the highest poverty rates, and the highest rates of violence. And on the flip side, countries and states where the gender gap has been narrowed by legislators and policy, well, the quality of life for everyone in that state or country is significantly better on key quality of life measures. And those tend to be the northern states and countries like Ireland, Denmark, Iceland, Finland, Sweden, Germany, New Zealand, Norway, and Switzerland. People in these states and countries have a better quality of life as a result of a smaller gender gap and the policies they've put in place to achieve it. I mean, it's obvious, right? Women are 50% of the population, of the race, of the religion, of the region. And when half of us are held back, when lives are restricted and limited and not fairly represented, well, the entire population is held back and harmed. That's half of our potential wasted. And if you look at the state of the world today, I think you would agree with me that we need all hands on deck today, fully engaged, healthy, and thriving. And it takes equality to be able to be fully engaged. It takes equality to be healthy and to thrive. We can't tie the hands of half of our population behind its back and get anything but mediocrity in return collectively. So what does inequality cost your sister, your daughter, your mother, your grandmother, your aunt, and yourself if you are female? Well, this first video I want to share with you, the first one coming up, puts U.S. constitutional inequality front and center and needs to remain there until this is remedied and women have the same constitutional rights as men. Today in the United States, women have only one constitutional right, and that's the right to vote. And we see it in the upheaval in women's lives and their families all across the country due to legislation and court decisions and the fact that women have never been guaranteed equal constitutional rights. In the second video of the series, I'll cover highlights from the UN event that pertain to economic and work inequality. The third video will share important insights from sessions focusing on gender-based violence. And in the fourth and final video, we'll see how gender inequality costs women their freedom. And there is no place on the planet where freedom is more limited and lives restricted for half its population than Afghanistan. But let's make no mistake about it. There is some form of restriction and limitation on women's lives and as a result on all of our lives in every country. These are short videos with the intention of sharing with you the ongoing work of our extraordinary international community. And I hope you're both inspired by that and more hopeful. There is much still to do to level the playing field. And mostly it is about becoming the people who embrace our humanity and live in alignment with it. So thank you so much for your time. With a vision of peace, harmony, and loving kindness surrounding you and each of us, our hearts will guide us from the dark times to light through our personal challenges and those we face together. A change of heart truly changes everything. And as my favorite Persian poet Rumi once said, as you live deeper in the heart, the mirror gets clearer and cleaner. Thank you. And check out video 1 next, Constitutionally Unequal in America.